ever started something, a new diet, a Bible study program, started school, started an exercise program, something like that, and it was going fabulous, and then all hell broke loose? Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about why in your transformation journey, it seems like you can be going along great, and then you crash and burn, and you can't get yourself started again. And it takes a long time before you can get started again. And when you do, you crash and burn again. So those are the things we're going to talk about tonight. Let me tell you something that's going to be both extremely encouraging and sickening at the same time. Okay? That's what we all want, right? Encouraging and sickening. When you set your intention on something, all hell is going to come against you. And that is how the world is set up. Because let's go back to Genesis and let's talk about the fact that God created, it says, He created the heavens and the earth. But then the earth was formless. It was void, and that the Spirit of God had to hover over the void. Now, I'm not a theologian by any means, but I've heard several people talk about the fact that this word void means chaos. So even when God intended to create the earth, He created it, and then chaos. And then His Spirit had to come and hover over the face of the deep and bring life and bring order out of the chaos. So if you have been disappointed because it seems like you can't get order, because it seems like all hell is breaking loose, just know that the same thing happened to God. So you're in really, really good company. And there's a way through it. So that's one of the reasons that all hell breaks loose. You set your intention, chaos ensues. Just expect it. Just expect that it's going to happen. Now, this is not the kind of expecting like, oh, woe is me, nothing good ever happens, it's all bad. No, the kind of expectation that says, I'm going to go in and there's going to be resistance, but I'm going to break through that resistance because I can, because I'm well equipped to do that. And so when the resistance comes, you don't go, oh, what happened? I'm being resisted. You don't do that. When the resistance comes, you go, I know you. I knew you were coming, and I'm coming after you. You came to take me down, and I'm coming after you. So that kind of chaos you fight against. But tonight, the big thing that we're going to talk about is the enemy inside. That's right, the enemy inside. And why are we talking about this? Well, because this is what I've had to fight this week. This is what God has been speaking to me about. It's called self-sabotage. Yep. Self-sabotage is the biggest enemy you can have. You know why I say that? Because if you are settled on the inside and you know who you are on the inside, when the outside circumstances come, you can handle it. But when you are turning against yourself on the inside and the outside comes, you join with the armies on the outside to destroy yourself. So let's talk about some of the ways that self-sabotage can manifest. But before we do that, for those of you that don't know me, thank you very much for being here. I'm thrilled to get to spend the evening with you. My name is Stephanie Lamangelo. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I'm a functional medicine provider, and I'm also a transformation coach. And one other thing I need to mention, thank you to Jennifer Whitson, and congratulations to you for winning the book that I gave away a couple of videos ago. And that book was Living Fearless by Jamie Winship. Jennifer is ready to live a fearless life, and that book is on its way to you. And I just pray that it impacts you the way it impacted me, and that today is the beginning of your fearless life. Okay, let's get started in some of the ways that self-sabotage can manifest itself. Because if we saw the enemy, if we recognize the enemy right away, we could do something about it. But self-sabotage is sneaky. It is very sneaky. So I'm going to point out some ways that you can sabotage yourself. First of all, it can disguise itself as, oh, well, I just don't feel like it today. We've all had those times, right? I just don't feel like it today. Or I don't have time. The problem is tomorrow you won't have time either, or the next day, or 6 months from now. You're not going to have more time than you have. You have 24 hours in a day. We all have 24 hours in a day. What we do with that is the important thing. So learn not to sabotage yourself with that. There's this one, the obvious one, purposely doing what we know is wrong. Purposely going against what we have said we don't want to go against. Purposely going off our diet. Purposely refusing to stay with your schooling. Purposely refusing to stay with your workout. And even doing that, now I'm not talking about taking time off. I'm not talking about going, I'm going to have a break and have a piece of birthday cake because I'm at a birthday party. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those times when you know good and well that you can feel yourself saying, forget it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not doing it today. And you purposely do the very thing that you are setting out not to do. In case you were wondering, Paul dealt with that same thing in the Bible. So you're still in good company, right? Putting it off. That goes back with, I don't have time because, well, I'll do it later when it's more convenient. If you're a parent, you already know there's no convenient times in your life. And it ain't going to come when you're retired either. So just don't look for convenient times. Make a time. Make a time for things to happen. Here's one that I hear a lot and people don't realize it's self-sabotage. They say things like, I just don't look forward to things anymore. I just don't enjoy things anymore. You know why? Because you're too busy looking this way. You're too busy looking behind you at the things that either didn't work or worked so well that you don't think anything could ever match that. So you won't look forward to something positive in the future. Okay? Here's a couple that we don't recognize, and they are, everybody does this. Good job, good job, good job. I'm so proud of you when we do these things. But these are self-sabotage, and let me tell you what it is. Perfectionism and overworking. Everybody will applaud you for being a perfectionist. They will applaud you for being a perfectionist, but you know what perfectionism does? Perfectionism says, if I can't get it perfect, I'm not going to do it. And that seems so noble, but it is a cop-out, so stop it. And I say that because I've done it so many times. Well, if I can't do it right, I don't want to do anything at all if I can't do it right. Bull crap. That's a cop-out. Stop it. I'm here as your good friend to tell you, stop doing that. Here's one of my other personal favorites before I get off on the whole perfectionism rabbit hole. Overworking. Overworking, the world will applaud you for. Overworking, the world will absolutely applaud you for. And you will collapse and die. And at your funeral, they will say, boy, she was a hard worker. At least if that's your funeral in the South. I don't know, maybe in the North or the Midwest or, out on the West Coast, they say something different. But here in the South, you work yourself to death and you die, and they're going to talk about what a hard worker you were. Then they're going to go eat, and they're going to forget about you. And your life that could have been, if you had managed to take a break, that's what you're missing out on. So I'm going to check and see if I've got any comments. Yes. So somebody commented, I think perfectionists or perfectionism, I guess, perfectionists burn themselves out eventually. Yes, absolutely. It's teeny tiny print from where I'm looking. Maybe I need some glasses. I think perfectionists burn themselves out eventually. Yes, they do. And they do that because they don't see that that is their strength, but also becomes their cop-out. So thank you for pointing that out. If you are listening and any of these are your thing, or something that I have not said is your self-sabotage thing that you've recognized, go ahead and put that in the comments. All right, so here's the big thing. Why do we self-sabotage? Why do we do that? It seems like, well, duh, don't hurt yourself. Well, duh, don't be the one to stand in your way, because let's talk about this. This blew me away today when I was thinking about all this stuff. I've been thinking about it for a week, because it's been about a week that I realized I was doing it to myself. What is sabotage? When we think about sabotage, we think about, or I think about, something really important, and somebody is just intent on that important thing. It's not going to happen. Oh, Lord, I just about to turn my water over on my computer. So somebody is really intent on that. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to sabotage it. You think about the government and people being sabotaged and all this stuff. And you think about the ex-wife that wants to destroy her husband and she sabotages everything that he does, or vice versa. Those kind of things. Are you that kind of person? Would you purposely, totally sabotage somebody else's life? Are you that girl? Are you that man? Or that woman, that boy? Are you the one that would destroy somebody else? Are you the, let's go back, I'm going to date myself here. Y'all remember in the Olympics when blonde girl, Tanya, she had a last name, I don't remember. She was in the Olympics. And Nancy Kerrigan, is that her name? Somebody correct me in the in the comments. Anyway, and there was the whole hire somebody to like hack her, to injure her, Nancy Kerrigan, so she couldn't compete against you. Like, are you that person that you would do that? If you are, my channel's not the right one for you. You need a therapist. But I'm guessing that you're not that person to other people, but you're doing it to yourself. Why? Why are you doing it to yourself? Here's some things that I believe, and, research, for whatever that's worth, counselors that have dealt with this kind of stuff for a long time talk about, but most of these I just pulled out of exactly why I do it. Fear of rejection. We self-sabotage because we don't want to be rejected for being different. Fear of failure. If I sabotage myself, then I don't have to worry about really failing, because I know in my heart that I could sabotage myself. I've done this with my weight so much and said, well, if I really wanted to, I would lose this weight, but I know that I'm just messing myself up. And it's a weird way of being sure of your outcome, because you're not sure of the outcome out there. Because, I hope that once I've dealt with all of my emotional eating, that I will lose a lot more weight than what I've lost so far. But what if I don't? And what if I'm still heavier than I want to be, and I can't blame it on emotional eating? Well, maybe it's just not safe to go there at all. Fear of failure. It'll do it to you. Past traumas, we all know that we will sabotage ourselves when we have traumas in our life that we have not dealt with. So that's one that's big. Here's one. I don't deserve the happiness. I don't deserve the happiness. Maybe because you just don't feel like you really deserve it, because you don't believe you're important enough to deserve being happy, or maybe because you have done things in the past that you feel like you have to pay for by not being happy. But those are reasons we self-sabotage. We've already talked about fear of the unknown, because we want the familiar. The familiar is comfortable, and we want comfort, and we want to not feel afraid more than anything else. This is how dictators control countries by making everybody feel like you have to be afraid of everything. We will give up all of our freedom and all of our liberty for comfort and to feel secure. Don't even get me started. But that's exactly what happens in our lives personally, and that's exactly what's happening on just a broad spectrum right now. Here are the two that get me every time. Fear of success. Yes, afraid to succeed, and imposter syndrome. Let's talk about imposter syndrome first. My husband and I were talking about this one day, about imposter syndrome and who gets imposter syndrome. And the truth is, let me stop. If you don't know what imposter syndrome is that feeling that you get when you go to do something new that you are completely qualified to do, but you start feeling like you're not qualified. Everybody that started at a new job feels this way. Every new nurse, for me, when I started into nursing, I kept waiting for them to be like, she doesn't know what she's doing. When I was a nurse practitioner, I kept waiting for them to come and say to me, literally probably the first 6 months, I kept waiting for somebody to come and be like, you're not allowed to do this. What are you doing? But the truth is, the more qualified you are, usually the more you feel like an imposter because you're more aware of wanting to be perfect. Yeah. Wraps back around, doesn't it? This is what I think about imposter syndrome, really at the root of it. We have our true identity, that is the one that God spoke to us, that He created us to be our true identity. And then we have our real identity, and that's the one that we have created. And most of the time, there's this huge disconnect between our true identity and our real identity. And I think that gap between these two things is what makes us feel imposter syndrome. I think the smaller that gap is, the less we feel imposter syndrome. So here's the exciting thing. What if, just going to throw this out there, what if we start with the premise, what if we decide to believe, like I've talked about so many times, throw away your unbelief, get rid of it. What if we decide to start with the premise that our true identity, our ideal identity that God created us to be, is who we really are, and that the real identity over here is an imposter because it was created with fear and abandonment issues and, having to prove themselves and pain and rejection. But this is the real one. What if we stay closer to this? Then there's no room for imposter syndrome because we know Jesus didn't create imposters. You are not an imposter. If I can get you to believe this, you are beyond equipped to do what you feel in your heart to do. If you knew how Jesus looks at you and how his whole world just explodes in His heart with love for you and how well pleased He is with you, you would go forward. Believe that. I know that is true. It's very clear in the Bible that's how Jesus thinks of us. Decide today that true identity that Jesus spoke over you. That identity is the real one. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can go back into my very first live that I did in this series, and I will link it to this video when we're done, that talks about how to find your true identity and listening prayers and those kind of things. So that's the imposter syndrome. Huge reason that we self-sabotage. But here's the big one, and here's the one that, this sounds crazy. It sounds crazy for me to even say it. The fear of success. The fear of success has been what I have fought my whole life. And for those that know me that are watching this might sound insane because I've been the one that's like, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Because I always felt compelled to be more than what I was being. I always felt compelled to accomplish more and felt like that I could. But at the same time, I was terrified to reach the heights that I feel like God is calling me to. And this is why I'm just going to be totally open and real here. I have felt set apart my whole life. And when you mix feeling set apart for a good purpose with woundedness in your heart, what you feel like is an outsider. You feel like an outsider. And it is no fun to be an outsider. It's not. It is not. I loved being set apart. I loved being different. I loved being the one with red hair, and I loved being the girl that was taller, and I loved all of those things. But there was a part of me that just wanted to be like everybody else, but battled against being like everybody else at the same time. That ideal me and that real me were constantly battling. And here's the thing about belonging. A lot of times we identify with people and we belong to groups because of our weakness, especially if it's social groups that we choose. We gather together around depression. We gather together around pain. We gather together around rejection. We gather together around weaknesses. And it's not wrong to want to support each other. And it's not wrong to be able to connect with somebody because of what you've gone through. That's not wrong. What is wrong is when those groups become so tight that when you try to elevate yourself out of them, when you set your intention to become something more than this brokenness, that they reach up and they pull you in. Or they're like, who do you think you are? Oh yeah, now you've got it all figured out, right? I don't know. I don't even want to be around her anymore because she thinks she's all that now that she's doing this, now that she's doing that. Let me tell you something. Those are not real friends. People that treat you that way are not real friends. And here's the thing, we know that, and we still go right back to it. We still go right back to it. If your friends will not accept you when you no longer share a weakness with them, they ain't your friends. I know that ain't good grammar. They ain't your friends. If we only connect to people based on our weakness, it keeps us weak. And it's easy to connect to people on our weakness, based on our weakness. We don't have to do anything to connect to people based on our weakness, because that energy just reaches out and connects us to them. And we don't have to be anything more. But the thing is, if you want to transform your life, and I think you do, because I think that's why you're here. If you want to transform your life with weight loss or with going back to school, if you want to write a book, and you want to conquer the world, you have to start connecting with people based on their strengths. So I'm going to give you a little visual here, because this is how I thought about this. All right, so here you are. Yeah. I always make the bodies too long. Do you ever struggle to make stick men? Like, I feel like I can draw real stuff better than I can draw stick men. You're walking along and you have this connection with this person. And this connection is love and acceptance and understanding. And we like the same movies, same music. We believe the same things, all of those things. That's this connection. You're walking along this path. But then the path can either go this way, right? Or the path can start going up. So here's what happens. Oop, ripped my tab off. Oh, Lord. You are here. You choose to climb up and up and up. You're here. But your friend is like, you be you, do your thing. And they stay on this path. But you still have this connection here, okay? Eventually, there's only three things that can happen. Eventually, either they have to come up, you can cut this, or you are going to fall down. You know what usually happens? You fall down because you value this connection so much that you will sacrifice yourself and your future to feel safe and feel connected. All right. So here's what happens. Excuse me. You start up the path. You start up those stairs, and your friend is walking the other path, and you start feeling this strain. You start feeling this strain because the connection that is between you guys is so tight because you walk the same way, because you walk the same path. And you start feeling that strain. And with every step up that you take in your life, it becomes more evident that there is more of a strain and more of a separation between you and your friend that is choosing to stay in the thing that you're choosing to come out of, regardless of what it is. You feel like you start feeling this strain. So in your mind, improving yourself, elevating yourself, getting yourself back together, getting yourself under control gets associated with that feeling of strife and tension. And I always feel like something is pulling me away from the people that I really love. And so in your mind, and I know this sounds weird because, and when I say your mind, I really mean your subconscious and your spirit and in your heart. Because in your mind, you know that improving yourself is a good thing, but how can something be good if it's pulling you away from the people you love most? How can it be good if it's making you feel like there's a separation between your family, your friends, your coworkers, your church members? How can that be good? So your mind goes, when something is good, it's supposed to feel good. And so you say, this elevating myself, this transforming myself is not good because it's causing this tension. But the truth is, this is what you have to do. You have to cut that rope. And you have to be okay with them walking their path. Because here's what's also what happens. You are elevating yourself. You're transforming your life. You are not emotionally eating. You are losing weight. You are feeling great. You are doing the stuff. You are working out because you feel better and you want to move, not because you want to be skinny, just because you just feel all this life because you're no longer emotionally eating. And your friend over here says, hey, let's go out to eat. And you're like, okay. And so you go out to eat and you eat this much of your food because that's all your body is calling for. And you don't want to order the dessert because you're not hungry anymore. And your friend gets offended because where you used to sit and, oh, we're going to eat all of our food. And oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate all that much. And yeah, let's order dessert too. And then laugh about how full you are and how you shouldn't have done it. They get offended because you're not there to be in that party with them. So we see this with any addicts. Like, that's why you can't go back. That's why once you elevate yourself, you have to disconnect. That doesn't mean you throw people away. That means you understand the closeness you had was based on something that was not healthy in your life. Now, this is not all relationships. I'm not by any means saying all relationships are bad. I mean, relationships are good. Relationships are why we were created, to have relationships with God and with people. But if you start feeling a strain, when you elevate yourself, when you transform, when you want to change your life and do better, you have to let those people go. You have to. Because if you don't, let's circle back, because I know that was a big, long rabbit hole. If you don't, your fear of succeeding will cause you to self-sabotage. So, like I said earlier when we started the video, last week, I had this day, and I've already shared with you guys, we've talked about our triggers, what makes us want to eat emotionally. When I'm tired, I want to eat. My emotions are worse. My energy's down, I want to eat. And I had one day where if you had looked from the outside, you would not have noticed that I was eating more than my body was calling for. I was not eating within hunger and fullness. I was not following the boundaries that I know that God has given me. But you could not have told it from the outside, which is kind of tricky because nobody can call you on it if it's not obvious, right? But in my heart, every time I ate that day, and this was after I did the video, every time I ate that day, I just purposely ate. And I wasn't hungry. I purposely ate more of the stuff than I wanted. Did I eat a huge amount? No. Have I totally binged and killed myself in the past? Yes, but that's not what I was doing because that's way too obvious a way of self-sabotage. This is about the Holy Spirit said, no. And I went, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I did that whole day. And I went to bed and woke up the next day just feeling just a heaviness, a physical heaviness, because when you do that, you think I've gained all my weight back in 24 hours, which is humanly impossible, but you still feel that way. But it's this emotional heaviness. It's the thing that sits back down on you when you're not being true to yourself, true to the Holy Spirit, obeying and doing what you know to do. And I was like, why am I doing this? And I was on a Marco with my best friend, and I was saying, I don't know why I do this. What is wrong with me? I'm doing these lives and I'm telling people to do like this. And then I have a day where I purposely ate. What is wrong with me? And I heard God say, you are self-sabotaging. I've done this a lot in my life, as I mentioned before. When I was in college, for the second time, I was Miss Do Everything. I worked on campus. I was in student government. I was doing all this stuff. I was exercising like crazy all the time. And I was just living the life, doing everything. And I crashed and burned and ended up having to come home from college. Big, long story. If you want to hear that, I'll put that link. I have that story as another video that I have on my channel. But I realized that I was afraid of becoming who I was becoming, who I felt like I was being called to be. And so I just burned myself out so that when I got sick and my body collapsed, nobody could be like, oh, well, she just quit, because I didn't want to be known as a quitter. They were like, well, she physically couldn't do it anymore. That looks like self-sabotage. We will run ourselves till we're sick to sabotage ourselves because we don't want to be quitters, but apparently we don't want to be winners either. I know it sounds crazy, but I know there are people out there. I see the thumbs up you're giving me. People do this stuff. So I heard God say, you're self-sabotaging again. And that night I was like, why, Lord? Why am I self-sabotaging? And I had asked that before. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Here's an aside. Don't ask why. Because why is a big black hole. I'm going to tell you one more story about asking why. When my husband and I lost our second child to miscarriage, we had our first miscarriage and then our second miscarriage. I was saying, why, God? Why? I want to know why. I want to know why. God told me two things. He said, first of all, you're acting like nobody else in your life matters. Like your husband doesn't matter anymore. Your family, other family doesn't matter anymore. And is that how you want them to feel? And I said, no, Lord, I don't. And he was like, well, then stop acting like what you lost is more important and trumps everything that you still have. And I don't know who this is for or even why I'm telling this story, but I'm saying there's somebody out there that is acting like what you have lost trumps everything that's around you that you still have, and you need to stop. And he said to me, if I answered why, your next question would be, why? If God said, let's just pick a reason that you can miscarry. So being unhealthy is a reason your body can't carry pregnancies, okay? So let's say God said to me, you're not healthy enough to carry a baby. I would have said, well, then why'd you let me get pregnant? Why didn't you tell me I wasn't healthy enough? Why becomes a black hole? So instead of asking why, instead of demanding answers, try this. Ask, what do you want me to know about this, Lord? And what do you want me to do about this situation? Like I said, I don't know who that was for, but I just felt like I needed to speak that out. So I had asked why so many times about why do I self-sabotage. 2 nights ago, I was laying in bed and I said, Lord, because I knew I needed to do a video about self-sabotaging. I knew that I did. And I said, Lord, what is the root? What is the root of why I self-sabotage? This is what God said to me. Fear of failure and fear of being alone are the root of your self-sabotage. That's what he said to me. That's my root of self-sabotage. That might be yours, or there might be something else. But I encourage you, instead of asking why, say, God, what is the root of this? I see myself doing this. I notice that I do these things. What is the root? But this is what he said that was so encouraging. And this is to me, but it's also to you because it's true of everybody. It's true of what God says of everybody. I will hold you up. You cannot fall. You can never be alone. How high would you climb if you knew you could never fall? How far would you go if you knew you would never be alone? How strong would you stand in your beliefs and in the things that God is telling you to do and telling you to say and who he's calling you to be if you knew that you would never have to be alone, even if the whole world was standing against you? You know, if you grew up, and like I said, all I can speak to is the South. If you grew up in the South like I did, going to Bible schools and the little churches that I went to, every Bible school, every time they talked to kids, they sang this song. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. I still get, can you see this? You can't. I still get chill bumps when I sing that song, when I think about that song, because it hit me so deep as a kid. But there is a verse that always hit me and it's the verse that said, though none go with me, still I will follow. Though none go with me, still I will follow. And as a little bitty kid, I can remember in the core of my being like, yes, God, if I'm alone, if I'm, totally abandoned and deserted, I will go with you. And what I knew as a kid that I struggle to remember as an adult is that he will hold me up. He will not let me fall. And he will never let me be alone. And he will do the same things for you. So if you have found yourself in this, you started off well and then all hell broke loose, remember that's because chaos follows intention. Myron Golden has a great teaching on this. So if you want to go in and put Myron Golden and chaos and intention, he has a great teaching on that. Remember that conquering the enemy that is within you is the most important thing you can do. Remember that the ideal person, not the one that was created over here by fear and abandonment and failure, but the true identity that Jesus spoke is who you really are. And remember that every time that you see it as a failure, it just proves that you're trying to do something. And if you don't quit trying, you're not going to fall. You're not going to fail. Keep getting up. I believe in you. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to leave your comments if you have anything that you want to share with us. If you have been blessed by this, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell. Thank you so much. I will see you next Wednesday at 7:30. Be blessed.